presented by Dano Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a very special edition of the Sun Belt Syndicate. Most of you remember Noah and Caden, which isn't able to join us tonight, but Noah is lucky enough to brace us with his presence to bring more professionalism to this show tonight. And obviously, a ton of you were fans of Frary and Smith podcast, which did an excellent job covering the Sun Belt. And Noah has been on to bigger and better things as well in his personal life. So we'll get to that in just a minute. We do want to thank our sponsors, as always, W Energy, Dano Seasoning, which I put a little bit of the Chipotle stuff on the mac and cheese tonight. So you don't have to go out and cook up something fancy to use the seasoning, right, TJ?
Yeah, you don't. And listen, if you got it at home, you got it at home, right? There's not a whole lot they're going to make in a restaurant that you can't make at home. Also, my mantra, if you can read, you can cook.
There you go. I can read, but I'm still not sure about the cooking thing. But I will work on that as we go along. TSN Off-Road for your Molly panels and bungee cords, and also Fanplex Graphics. As you can see, they've got the Troy and App State posters currently available. Makes a nice Christmas gift, folks, if you've got some fans in your life that find that stuff interesting and want to put it on their wall. We got Warren joining the show saying he's watching Alabama high school football championships today, and several players are committed to Sun Belt teams. Yeah. Pleasantly surprised to see some of these kids that are coming in threes, and I think we're still struggling to get a lot of 4-stars, but I think there may be one or two across the realm here. But first, Noah, we've introduced you a little bit, but we want to hear about what you've been doing and what you've had going on since we missed you in the Sun Belt podcast realm since you guys have left.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I moved. I've kind of been moving up a little bit professionally, and just with everything going on, it became tough to kind of stay in the podcast space, at least to cover the league the way it deserves. And so we kind of, pass the baton to guys like you who are, covering it and doing a good job, but definitely miss it. I jumped on a Sunbelt show earlier this week, and it's kind of fun to just get back into it. I was supposed to be on the show for 15 minutes and it turned into 40. So we'll see what happens tonight, because it just felt good to talk some Sunbelt football after a little bit of a layoff. But thanks for having me on tonight, and look forward to chopping it up a little bit.
Oh, yeah. We know you'll bring it.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And we know we did reach out to Caden, and we were unfortunately not able to get both of them on, because it would have been cool to reunite Frary and Smith together on screen once more again. Have you guys done anything together since the show officially ended?
We keep in touch pretty frequently. We've bounced around a couple ideas, but with me moving and, getting married and, just work, and, he relocated to Nashville to be at On3's, corporate offices. And he actually just recently took a new job. He's the producer for JD Pickles, the Hard Count at this point. So he works very closely with him on that show. So just a lot going on. We have a standing, we need to talk about something and do more in the future. But, for now, we're both kind of chasing some separate dreams and just supporting each other, from afar. And it's been fun to see everything that he's accomplished. And I can't wait to see, what he's able to accomplish in the years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep up with you, I think mostly on LinkedIn. I see a lot of the stuff that you're doing. So if you guys are on LinkedIn, certainly shoot Noah a follow. It's very interesting, very cool to see where he's been going, who he's been working with, and how that network of announcers and people within the sports realm all kind of connect. And it's interesting and very cool to see some of that stuff go on with, numerous football fields I've seen you pictured on, and bundled up here recently when it's getting colder outside and everything. But and hockey, as we were talking about before the show went live. So even getting into some sports you don't know as well just yet.
Yeah, it's been a wild fall. I think I've done 7 sports at this point this fall, called football this past weekend. I'm into basketball season already. So, when you're chasing a dream, you just keep saying yes, and you eventually hope that you get to the top. So that's what I'm working towards, and excited to see where it all goes.
Nice.
Very nice. Well,
congrats, man.
We
and
wish
also
you
congrats on
continued
being married.
success.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah. And we know that you have been a consummate professional of the Sun Belt for a long period of time. So there was no better week to bring you in and talk about some more Sun Belt stuff then the biggest game of the year in the Sun Belt, as Marshall is going down to Louisiana, as we know now, which unfortunately Louisiana has half a stadium right now that they're working with.
Yeah.
But I know they'll still put out a show. I know I was listening to the Rage and Review guys earlier today, and I guess the Sun Belt has officially taken over, as they do with this event. And so parking is a little bit easier than it usually is for the people with the best donations get the closest spot. It seems like as long as you pay $20 and you get there early, you could have some of the best spots right there at Cajun Field, which is cool. I kind of like that element. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna pay my money, I want to be able to park. So, I say that there should always be, some special privileges given to certain individuals, right? I mean,
right.
Life is, fair, or I guess life isn't always fair, but it's, the way it should be. So,
yeah, I like the fact that they're rewarding people who want to be there at 10 a.m. if they want to. You pay 20, you're there at 10 a.m., you get a good spot, right? Like,
hey, we all know everyone in college athletics these days, they're chasing the almighty dollar. And so it's hard to blame athletic departments that want to monetize even their parking lots. So, right, that's just how things are these days.
They do it in the NFL, that's for sure. I know
Yes,
a Dallas Cowboy parking ticket is like $160 to watch the game outside of the stadium. So
that's why I will say, guys, the best fringe benefit, and if I could give a promo of why it's going to be a sports broadcaster, is better parking. The other day I was at Charlotte and UAB, and my parking spot was 5 minutes from the gate. I was in there, 5 steps from the gate rather. So the parking passes are definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the one downside, maybe it's not a downside really, because like you said, it's very nice to roll into a stadium early and not deal with all the craziness, but you do have to get there quite a bit earlier. I mean, what's your kind of usual time frame of being at a game? Is it like 2 hours early, or is it?
Two and a half. Just depends on if it's a new environment. I think I was, at my football game about 2.5 hours early. So that is nice, but it definitely makes for a long day on top of, calling a football game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I took in my first Sunbelt basketball game as credentialed media, which wasn't even a Sunbelt home game last night in Campbell. Have you done a game at Campbell?
I haven't. I have a really good friend who does a lot of work down there. He wasn't on that game last night, but I have not been to. I think it's Booze Creek, right? Or I think it's how they Booze Creek. Yeah.
It's kind of. I mean, it's much smaller than Liberty, right? But it's pleasantly surprising when you walk on campus. I mean, everybody greeted me with a smile and was very inviting. Like, those types of places don't get a tons of media, and I wasn't even there to cover their team specifically, but they were still very thankful. I would gladly go back and entertain any media offer down there again. So I'm sure you kind of get that same type of treatment in some of the places you go, and people get to know you, and then it's even more comfortable and a joy to show up and come back and do it again. So yeah. And you've been down to Cajun Field, right?
That is actually a place I have not been to. I've been to most of the Sunbelt, colleges, but I've never made it down to Louisiana. You kind of have to be very intentional about getting to Louisiana, because I spend a ton of time down in New Orleans working for the Sunbelt, as you guys know. And I mean, it's still a couple-hour drive past there to get to Lafayette. So I have a standing invitation and a crawdad boil to attend at some point, but I have not made it down there yet. But it was funny, to your point. I got a text from Caden the other day, and we've gone to the last 2 Sunbelt football championships, and obviously they've both been in Troy. And not that I don't love Troy, Alabama, but I was looking forward to potentially a new place. And he said, "Man, I wish that we were going down there this year." So I definitely will miss that opportunity, but it's a place I need to get to at some point.
Yeah, I said the same thing to TJ. We were gonna put a plan together. We even thought about doing it, and we were like, all right, if it's during the week, as kids with dads who play sports on weekends, it's easier for us to go during the week, right?
Yes.
So we're like all excited. Yes, they're on the schedule. They're going to put it at the weekday. They always put App State versus Louisiana on a weekday. So we're gonna go down there. And then of course schedule comes out and it's a Saturday game. It's like,
right. And I'm coaching.
Yeah. And the one time we were really planning to do it, and of course that happens. But what's up, Ben? Thanks for joining this show, man. I know I threw it out in a bunch of Sunbelt
Hey,
teams,
so
groups.
I'm actually gonna pull a curveball on you. My wife just texted me and she needs me to call her right back. So start without me, and I'll jump back on in a second.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
No worries.
Yeah, Ben is saying, "What's up? Long time no see, TJ."
What's up, bro? How are you?
You
Always
missed
nice
me
to be
giving him a
back in
hard
the
time
saddle.
last week. You missed me giving him a hard time because I was right. I picked ODU to take care of Arkansas State, and they did. But
Yeah, that did happen. Sorry about that, man.
I do want to say we did have some comments on Instagram. I'm trying to do better about jumping back and forth. Unfortunately, they don't put them over here on the side and make it easy for me. Jason Hutchins, says it just doesn't see Bill putting up with college kids. I'm sure that's in reference to Bill Belichick and the UNC rumor that we were talking about before, and saying the Stanford Cardinal is a Christmas tree mascot to him is what it looks like. Yeah, so shout out to Jason for joining the show. We really appreciate that. So we will start our talk here about this big game. And look, I've said it for years. TJ, I'm pretty sure you agree because we talked about this a couple episodes ago about when these big games should be played. When's the best time of day to play them? It's finally a night game. I feel like I've been asking for that for this championship game for many years, and they finally did it. They put it on ESPN, the mothership, at 7:30, 6:30 Central Time. I don't think it gets any better than that, right?
No, this is the pinnacle. It'd be nice to have some black and gold in there, but you know what? I'll take what I can get as far as it being Sunbelt. It's going to be a great game. Both team average about, and we'll get into this as we go along. Both team average high points in scoring, mid to low 30s. So we're looking at a barn burner, talking about who gets the ball last kind of deal, or who's going to make a big stop. So I think ESPN knows what you and I know, and they were intentional about how they placed this game. And so I think we're in for a treat.
Yes, I agree. I think this one's going to be really good. Cody's joining the show saying he likes Marshall in this game. I've seen a ton of people that aren't a fan of either one taking both sides. Like, it's kind of crazy to me. Like, that tells you right there what this game's going to bring on national television Saturday night. So I did share this in a bunch of groups where your team's not participating. It's because this game is going to be so good, I feel like, right? Like, There's not going to be a disappointing in this game. I'd be shocked, honestly, if it goes like heavily one way or another. I guess, is that you think there's any kind of possibility that you're pretty sure this one's going to be close right up till the end?
Listen, from what I know and from what we've seen, right? All we know is what we've seen, right? And what teams have put up on tape. This is shaping up to be a one-possession football game when it comes down to the end.
Yes,
I think it's going to be what we call an old-fashioned barn burner. Both teams have really good offenses and really good defenses, right? I mean, they average about, like I said, I think I said it earlier, they average about 30 points a game, each team. So, I mean, you're looking at I would slam the over in terms of total at 56.5. I would absolutely destroy that in terms of picking the over. But I think we're in for a good offensive battle, and it's going to come down to which defense can make that critical stop in that critical moment. And I think that's not going to come until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, this is we'll get into some specifics with some of the players here in a little bit.
But on the same page.
Yeah. Offense. I mean, there's some defense that's going to pop up, and we'll talk about some players to look out for. And I know you said you had a number of them marked down as well. Cody's definitely going to have this one on his TV. It's a fantastic matchup and agrees that it will be close. Cody's down there in Cajun country, kind of. I mean, I think he's technically in Arkansas, but he is an LSU fan. So maybe he's pulling for the Cajuns a little bit, or maybe he's doing the typical LSU thing and pulling against them. It's interesting to see if he's got a real rooting interest in this one, besides just watching it on TV and hoping for a good one. But he's a Herd Huddle saying, just hope all the madness this week hasn't caused too many distractions, and he believes in their guys. Yeah, this someone shared something in here, but I have tried to fact check it. That's why I was looking down at the phone there for a second. I have not verified it, so I won't be sharing here if you see it on the Facebook chat there. But yeah, and I think Noah's ready to get back on here, so we'll add him back to the show. Ben saying in his opinion, he wishes this game was at a neutral site. I'll disagree with that. I guess before we get into the details of this, do you guys prefer neutral site championship games, or do you like the on-site, on-campus games like the Sun Belt and a few other group of 5 teams have, or conferences have?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think you have to know who you are as a conference. And, you could put this game at a neutral site in Atlanta, but you're not going to draw nearly as well as you are at home. And so, I think at the end of the day, most G5 conferences are probably that way. It's not that, you're Alabama and Texas and you can place a game, randomly in a city and have it fill up. So I think for the group of 5, it makes a lot of sense. And ultimately, there's a lot of logistics there, too, for the conference offers to handle. So for me, it makes a lot of sense that these stay neutral or stay on site at these campuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, Noah. So as somebody who's played in games like this, I feel like the team with the best record deserves to have that home field advantage, right? It's one of those things, and it's really on sort of every level, right? I mean, you get some of those bigger games that are played in, the Superdome and things like that, which is great. I mean, that's fine. But for me, I feel like if you're the team that has won, right, you deserve to be in that spot. So I'm always going to be a fan of home team or excuse me, best record gets the home game.
Yeah, I am with both of you guys. I absolutely think this is one where you reward the home team. And Russ from Thundercast has said the same thing. On campus, reward the best team record after tiebreakers with hosting. And the only thing I would work on, maybe you guys agree with me, the tie-breaking procedure, like clean it up. It doesn't need to be like so convoluted, I feel like. Make it a little more simplistic. The one I'd like to see is obviously head-to-head first, record in the conference. And then I think like the third one should maybe be like out of conference, like record against teams out of, I guess it's because it's schedule dependent, right? Like
I was going to say that's going to depend on who you play.
Yeah. And actually that's a good example for this year because Marshall did play 2 power teams while the Cajuns played, I believe, only one in Wake Forest, who they beat when Marshall did not win either of theirs against Virginia Tech and Ohio State. Not that they were easy games, but we do have to just mention.
I think
Wake Forest.
And I think what it comes down to, I mean, so what, it takes an extra 12 hours to wait for the computer polls to come out on Sunday morning. I mean, no one's really making plans Saturday night after the football games wrap anyways. So, to me, like that's what a lot of conferences use. I don't think you want to see the Sun Belt do something different than what a lot of conferences do. So I think you have to kind of maybe keep it the way it is.
True. It would have been really easy and clean had we had one of these 2 teams in the CFP rankings, right? Because that's the determining factor there too. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I was hoping it would be the case this year. Louisiana looked like they could be that team early on, but did slip up there against South Alabama. Okay, I'm going to have some guys up on screen. You guys probably have either some other individuals or just talk about the overarching look, and we will kind of go back and forth here. So I picked out 2 guys on the offense for the Cajuns that I'm going to be on the outlook for. And as you notice, if you're watching here, there's not a quarterback listed. And it's not because I don't think Chandler Fields couldn't be a difference maker. I want to be upfront with that. But we know Ben Woolridge was kind of the go-to, the leader of this locker room, the mainstay quarterback. They had some health issues across the board at quarterback last year. He came in and really got the job done and unfortunately suffered another injury that took him out for the rest of the season. Fields has come in and done a great job. I think he will be just fine, but I did want to focus on some of the guys that I think we're going to see a little bit more from in this game. As far as, the running game is concerned, I think we're going to see a lot from both sides. So I've got Bill Davis picked out here, 777 yards on the season, 9 touchdowns. He averages 5.2 yards a carry. And on the wide receiver aspect, again, that's going to be Fields getting him the ball. So, again, that's what I'm saying. He's still going to be heavily involved in this game. But I like what I've seen from Lance. Legendary?
No, it's LeJon.
LeJon. Okay, yeah, see, that's the Cajun thing that I'm going to butcher.
LeJon. Yep.
It's like it's like the French Canadian that played at Georgia State, where it's Veyer, but it looks like Valea or something. I knew I was going to butcher it. Yeah. So thank you, Noah. Again, this is where the experience and the professionalism comes in on his side. But he's been kind of their go-to wide receiver. They've had a number step up and get the job done. So this is not the one and only focus on the offensive side for the Cajuns. But these are two of the guys that I picked out. Look at that 16.7 yards per catch there for him. Dangerous with the ball in his hand. Either of these guys, dangerous with the ball in their hands. You guys got anything to add as far as the offensive side of the ball goes for the Cajuns?
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of follow up on what you said about Chandler Fields, the one thing that you can say about Chandler Fields is I think he is the most qualified backup in the Sun Belt Conference. There is probably a number of teams in this conference that would not mind having Chandler Fields being their starting quarterback, but we can all agree that Ben Wooldridge probably was in that upper tier of quarterbacks in the conference this year, so definitely a big loss, but Chandler Fields is a guy who's going to step in. He's, probably not going to hurt you. I don't know how much he's going to help you. He's had some good games down the stretch, but, I think they'll be okay there. And, I think with LeJohn and Davis, you pick a couple of really good skill players. And, I always say when you line up two teams for a championship game, you need the stars to show up. And I think that's going to be important, whether it's Louisiana or Marshall. You're going to need some of these big names to show up and make a play because there are going to be moments where that's needed if you want to win a championship. So I think, the run game is going to be critical in this matchup. I think both teams are going to run the ball a lot. And I think that's going to, make for a pretty fun football game.
No, I could not agree more, especially with your last couple points. When you have big time players, these are games that they shine in, right? Like you need your stars to be stars right now. And I highlighted, actually, I have my notes here, Bill Davis, with, the specific highlight that I had for him is the 5.2 yards per carry. That is extremely significant, right? Because you're talking 2 to 3 carries and there's a first down.
Mm-hmm.
Where that matters the most, and I'm sure you guys know this, having watched football as much as you've watched it, where that matters most is that the last 2 or 3 minutes of the first half, and then going into that 4-minute drive, if you've got a lead going into the fourth quarter or to end the game, right? That's where that matters. I mean, look at Saquon Barkley, look at Derrick Henry. I mean, you go no further than those guys. I mean, the Lions are playing on the TV right behind me. They've got a great rushing attack. Those kinds of things matter when you're talking about putting a team away. It's not enough just to be able to put points on the board. It's also important that you can control the clock, control the game, and control the outcome based on how you rush the football. And like Noah said, there's going to be a lot of running the football during this football game, and being able to control the clock. And I think Bill Davis is going to do a heck of a job in doing that. Not that Fields can't carry. I don't want to say carry you. Not that he can't manage the game very well. And I think that's kind of where we all are. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. He's an excellent game manager, more of a Alex Smith type in terms of he won't lose you the game, but he's not necessarily going to win you the game. Mm-hmm. But I think letting Bill Davis do what he does, averaging those 5.2 yards a carry, I think that is going to be key in terms of them winning this football game.
Well, and to further what you're saying, in a championship game like this, an environment like this, I think one of the big keys is, especially when you have Chandler Fields in that situation, you want to give him as many third and manageables as 100%. Possible, because you don't want stress points in this game. And so 100%. If you're able to pick up those chunk yards on first and second down, it makes it a lot easier to decision make later in those situations. And so I think that's critical for his success and for Louisiana's success. Can they continue to, pick up those chunk plays early on in their downs?
Yeah,
agreed.
Absolutely. I love it. So now we'll jump over to the offensive side. I didn't want to focus all on one team. I kind of like to go back and forth here because I think it's going to be a better correlation when we're thinking back to it and want to see what we're talking about here. But on the other side, I did put Braylon Braxton as a quarterback on here. But if you notice, I put his rushing statistics. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's dangerous as a thrower as well. But I think this, to me, is kind of like that two-headed running back tandem. Yes, he's a quarterback, but he gets it done on the ground almost as much as a number of running backs in this league throughout the season did. And then A.J. Turner, as TJ has already pointed out before, look at the yards per carry.
It's
right there.
Listen, I'm telling you, it's going to be significant. and I don't want to, again, I'm not trying to be a broken record, but yards per carry matters when you're talking 4-minute, your 4-minute offense or going into halftime, right? Can you control the clock? Can you manage a drive? And that's going to be the difference in who can win and who can lose this football game. Because if I don't have to throw the ball 30 times a game, why would I?
Right.
So then here's the caveat to all of this when you specifically talk about Marshall. I agree with what you guys are saying about the importance of the rush, but when you look at these two teams, Louisiana and Marshall, they're both very good defensively against the run. And so what I will say is there are going to be situations where a quarterback like Braylon Braxton is going to have to make something happen through the air. And, both of these teams are really good against the pass as well. So, I think the one thing, and I don't love how, we have said, game manager is a derogatory term against quarterbacks.
I hate that.
Because the one thing I can say about a Braylon Braxton, 17 touchdowns through the air this year, 2 interceptions. So what you're not going to have, and again, you're talking about a pressure situation, you're not going to have someone who's going to just make a really bad play that can completely change the momentum of the game. Yes, he might manage this game well, but he's not going to turn over the football. And I think at the end of the day, guys, it's not going to surprise me when we sit down after this game on Saturday and we look at it and say the team that wins the turnover battle is probably going to have won this football game. And so for Marshall, they've done a really good job at not turning over the football this year, and they're going to need more of that in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. I have to your point, Noah, I have a question for both of you guys specific to that. So you're talking strength on strength, right? Both teams rush the ball very well. Both teams are very good against the rush, right? So again, another situation where strength on strength. So you're talking about now, who do we trust in a critical situation to make a play? Mm-hmm. Are you guys more trusting in Braylon Braxton, which I feel like I know the answer to this, or are you putting your trust more in Fields to make that critical throw when it's necessary on a 3rd down and 6 or a 3rd down and 8 or what? I mean, where do you – because there's going to be a defining moment in this football game, right? It's not going to go specifically the way that we have it mapped out in our heads, right? Somebody's going to make a stop somewhere or somebody's going to make a play somewhere. Where does your trust lie, Dom? I guess I'll start with you.
I'm going to put it on Braxton because I feel like the best example is the last game there against JMU. You're down 17-0. You need to make some plays happen. Now, the big defining moment in that one was really the fake field goal, as we know. But I feel like Braxton on the run gives you that true dual threat look. You don't know if he has to throw the ball because he doesn't. He can get it done on the ground. So I'm going to lean on Braxton just being that bigger X factor between the two quarterbacks there.
Yeah, and I don't think that's unfair because at the end of the day, Caden always used to talk about on our show, about how challenging it is to play a dual threat quarterback. And that's something that Braylon's going to provide. Now, I think Chandler Fields has some of those characteristics as well. He can certainly, run the football in a situation. But you guys want me to zig. I'm going to zag here. And I think the biggest thing in this game, and you're talking about impact plays, I think an impact play is going to happen on special teams in this game.
Okay.
And both of these teams have, two of the better special team units in this league, whether it's, returning kicks or punts and giving yourself good field position to work with, or, we get down to a field goal kicking situation and Louisiana's sitting there, staring at a Luke Rosa Award finalist and Almendaris, who's, 26 of 28 for field goals this year. So I think that what we're going to see is two very evenly matched teams who are going to run the football a lot. And I think this game could very well come down to special teams. And if that is me and I'm breaking down this game correctly, I'm giving the advantage to Louisiana because they have proven time and time again that they have been elite on special teams this year. And it's part of the reason why they've had such a good season.
Yeah, I've actually looked up a couple stats from Louisiana coming in this game, and they're actually 27 for 29 in terms of field goals on the year. So if you're talking about putting your trust in a kicker or putting your trust in, who's going to make a play on special teams, I would certainly lean towards Louisiana in that regard. So good call, Bill.
And I think the other thing you've got to keep an eye on too, Mike Green is the player of the year in this conference. And, he's proven to be a game wrecker. And yes, Louisiana has an elite offensive line, a couple of guys on first team all conference, but Mike Green's had a Sun Belt record, 16 sacks this year, leads the nation with 21 TFLs. So Marshall needs to create some havoc in the backfield, make things a little bit more challenging on fields. Don't allow him to get comfortable because he can pick you apart if he does. But there's a ton of game wreckers and game changers in this game, and that's what has me super excited about Saturday.
Absolutely.
One final note on the rushing attack for both teams. The question does have to be, are either running back 100% at the moment? We know A.J. Turner was banged up towards the end of the season, did not get the ball, did not play as much on the field. And then in the last game, Bill Davis did take a knock late in the game. Again, probably didn't have to come back, but was held out probably more precautionary-wise. So it'll be interesting to see if both of these guys are really, truly 100% for this game. If they're even close, they're obviously going to go. I don't have any concern that either one of these guys aren't going to touch the field necessarily, but it will be interesting to see if there's more of a split load early to kind of hopefully save these guys, a little bit extra in the second half possibly. So it'll be kind of interesting to see some of that. But we do want to talk about the defensive side as well. Linebacker Casey Osai, and I had cornerback Keon Martin picked out. As I told you guys before, there's 3 or 4 guys on the secondary for Louisiana that literally could have been put here. One statistical category stuck out to me with the 6 pass breakups, and I like the 2 interceptions and the forced fumble. Kind of well-rounded game, but there's other guys on the field who have had more interceptions, but the linebacker position being strong. I mean, I saw KC down at Sunbelt Media Days. He is a massive human being and can bring the boom from the backfield. Interesting that he only had half a sack on the season, but over 103 total tackles that he was involved in. So what do you guys think about the Cajuns defensively on this one?
I guess I'll start here. First of all, I do like Casey Osai, and I did have him actually down in my notes with 103 tackles. Another defensive standout for me is safety Tyree Skipper. He stands at 6'2", 207. He's got, 4 interceptions on the season so far. Kid is an elite ball hog, right? I mean, he can cover the field. He can cover a half of a football field. Now, he's not going to light you up in terms of speed, right? He runs probably what it looks like is about 4.5, 4.6, 40 in the 40-yard dash. But based on his area and where he coverages the field, I think I've got a little bit more faith in him making plays defensively. And I mean, and again, they've got a ton of standouts on defense, right? So these are just us picking some guys that we like. But Tyree is one of those guys that if the ball's anywhere near him, he's going to get his hands on it. So, and that goes to our initial point of Marshall wanting to run the ball as much as they should, because you don't want to put yourself in harm's way if you don't have to. If I don't have to throw the ball 30 times, then I subject myself less to interceptions. And this is the kind of defense, the Cajun has the kind of defense that will intercept you and turn the ball over.
Yeah, and TJ, I think to your point, so that's why I think Casey Osai becomes so important in this game, because Marshall has so many weapons and ways that they can beat you that you really do lean on a guy like Osai to help not only, make the plays, but also get you aligned correctly. And I think that's going to be critical because, Marshall's going to throw different looks out there. And a guy like Casey Osai, who's seen a lot of it and, watches a lot of tape, I think that's going to be critical to this matchup. But I did find it interesting as a former wide receiver that you wanted to talk about defensive backs. So
listen, and more specifically safeties, because I play slot. Yep. So those are the guys that I go against the most. And so I respect the heck out of a good slot, especially slot corner, slot safety. I respect the heck out of those guys.
Yep.
Nice. I do want to say that
6'2", 207.
Yeah, that's a big one. I do want to say that we have a lot of comments coming in that aren't necessarily associated with the game. We will get to that stuff afterward. Noah's probably going to leave at that point, but we will talk about coaching, and if he wants to stay, obviously he's more than welcome.
I've got a couple of thoughts on that, so I'll stick around for a little bit to talk about some of that.
Well, we will jump in, and I know I'm going to let you take this one off the top here because you did mention Mike Green, and also, as you said, leads in you said tackles for loss, right?
Yeah, 21.
Also leads in sack yardage for loss. And the closest
Did not
guy
know
to him in that is like 30 yards away, I think. So impressive stuff from Mike Green. Just tell us more about, him or what you like out of him, I guess, more specifically.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a special player, and I think the one neat thing that you have consistently seen out of Charles Huff teams is they have been able to develop players at that defensive end, defensive line spot. You can think back to Owen Porter last year and in years past, and so they've always consistently had one of those game wreckers, and you need a game wrecker in a game like this. You need someone who can make a play, and yes, Louisiana has a really good offensive line, but I would put money on the fact that Mike Green is going to make a big play in this football game. You can scheme all you want, but he has the power to just overpower you. So I think that's going to be critical. I think the one thing that maybe concerns me a little bit right now for Marshall is their secondary. And they've been good this year, don't get me wrong. But I do think that if you're trying to pick out maybe a weakness on this football team defensively, I think you have to look at the secondary. Yes, J.J. Roberts has been really good this year, don't get me wrong, but you don't have a guy like a Micah Abraham that you've had in the past who can, again, change a game. I think you can sense the theme. As I look at a championship game, I'm looking for guys who can change a game. And I just am not sure Marshall has that in their secondary right now. But again, with Louisiana and their desire to rush the football, it might not come into play as much, but I do think Louisiana has a chance to maybe make some plays against that Marshall secondary that could turn into chunk plays that help them win a football game.
So not to be a contrarian, Noah, but so one guy I did have in my notes as far as guys that can kind of change a game in terms of, I don't want to say weak defensive backfield, but not necessarily as strong of a defensive backfield as Louisiana has, is Josh Moten. He's got 4 interceptions on the year so far. He's really, really good cover defensive back, and can kind of cover the field pretty well. Now, again, is he as elite foot speed wise as most DBs you would like to see? Probably not. But with the balls around him, he does make plays. So is he a guy that's going to change the game 100%? No, but like you said, if Mike Green can cause some pressure and he can get back there, then you're talking about some forced errant throws. And again, we just talked about the quarterback situation for Louisiana, not necessarily the greatest, again, not the worst for sure, but certainly not the greatest. And you put yourself in situations where a guy like Josh Moten can make plays.
Well, and you're spot on, because I think that's why Mike Green is so important in this game, because by him getting into the backfield, now you're putting more pressure on that quarterback to make quick decisions, which then probably elevates the strength of your secondary a little bit, because now the quarterback isn't throwing, with an empty pocket. So I think it's a team approach for Marshall defensively, but they're going to need a good game out of Mike Green going up against this Louisiana offense.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll just make one quick note, because you guys covered pretty much everything that we could have talked about there. But, Mike Green, a lot of these times you have a player like him at the group of 5 level, and, in a game like Virginia Tech or Ohio State, he disappears, right? Well, that just proves how good this kid is, because he doesn't disappear in those big games against the biggest players on the other side of the ball, and obviously going to be going to the NFL. After this, I believe, did he get a Senior Bowl invite? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
Not a Senior Bowl, not a
Senior Bowl. I'm sorry, an All-Star invite, because I guess he can't go to the Senior Bowl if he's not a senior, which he's not. But I don't know if he's gotten an invite somewhere. If he hasn't, there's got to be one coming out, because this guy is not going to be ignored. He's not going to let anybody ignore him. He'll probably just take him out on his way to the quarterback as well. So. Yeah, I've just been blown away by how many times you watch the game and you don't even have to look for him. He's going to make it obvious where he's at. Russ is saying that he has not yet received anything. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. He hasn't received anything as of yet.
One final note, because I absolutely agree with Russ on this, and I said it earlier today on Twitter as well. It's no disrespect at all to Marcus Williams-Trent down at Georgia Southern, but with what Mike Green has done to be the player of the year in the Sun Belt, but not also claim defensive player of the year at the same time, kind of blows my mind. I understand kind of sharing some awards so that other people get recognized, and for that I do like what they did. But if you're going to tell me that somebody's a player of the year, they should also kind of claim the position or the side of the ball that they also play, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing we've seen from Grayson McCall in years past, where you know I do think coaches like to spread those around, and I hear your point. I mean, player of the year, yeah, then you should be a shoo-in, but I think that's kind of been the trend where you're not going to see someone rack up multiple awards, and I'm not necessarily against that. I think giving more guys recognition, and Marcus Watson-Trent had a really good year for Georgia Southern, so. It's not something that bothers me, but I do see your point.
And I want to correct myself. I said Williams Trent. So thank you for saying that Watson Trent is correct last name. So sorry about flubbing that for any Southern fans that are listening. I'm sure they're probably staying away from this since they were that close to this game and didn't quite make it. Russ is saying Senior Bowl will get him later, in my opinion, because he's a redshirt sophomore. I think they will want him to declare. Yeah, I guess that's true. He hasn't technically declared, but I think we've been made aware that it's very likely that he will. I mean, we'll see, I guess. We've already really talked about this guy, so there won't be a big conversation here. But to be honest, when I was looking at this and hearing everything, looking at things, Almendaris being the X factor on the Cajun side, he's up for the award for the best kicker in the nation for a reason. His two misses, right? If you don't know, 53 yards and 60 yards. And the 60-yarder wasn't all that far away. That was the home game against App State where he just hooked it a little bit wide. So this guy is really good. I was listening again to the Rage and Review podcast where they had Reese Burns on from the Aussie kicker that they had a couple years ago. That was really good. He was talking that he had experience playing with Almendaris and said that he's just never been around anybody that is that calm and can just let it go after the play's over like he can. So when you have a guy that like that, he's not going to get, the lights aren't going to shine too bright in the biggest moments. And so if that is who's taking a final kick, as we've said, is possible in this type of game, I'm putting him as my X factor for that reason. If you guys have a different one or want to say anything else, we can cover that before we go to Marshall's possible X factor for me anyway.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, he would be my X factor. I mean, yeah. I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit on picks, but I've already said once this week that I think this game could come down to a field goal, and I'm going to take Kenneth Almendaris over Reese Verhoff in this game. So he's been that good this year. There's a reason he's a finalist for the best kicker in the country, and he's been a real weapon. And I think Louisiana might have to rely on him at some point in this game. And given the track record, he's most likely going to come through.
Yeah, agreed. And the BC is saying Mike Green is projected to be 20th to 30th first round pick. He's heading for a big career. He should be playing out of his mind Saturday in pursuit of the all-time sack record at Marshall. Foster is Hurd's X-Man for sure. Okay, so we got a different one there than what I picked. I'll jump over to that. We talked about Braylon Braxton being a threat on the ground. I put up his rushing stats because I feel like in the early onset of this game, they might try and get that running game established, a little bit of a slower start, especially if these defenses are as good as we all three of us think they are going to be. So my X factor that I picked out is Christian Fitzpatrick. He is their leading receiver already. I think they struggle a little bit in the red zone, but they also don't get a ton of plays in the red zone, I feel like. And this is a guy who could be a weapon with his height and a jump ball kind of situation there. If they need to put it up and just kind of hope for something late in the game, like I feel like this is the kind of guy I'm targeting, the kind of guy I'm looking at to make that type of play. They had a couple wide receivers that stood out in that JMU game as they made their comeback there, but Fitzpatrick is a guy that I think could step up in a big moment to make a really big play for the Thundering Herd this Saturday. You guys got some other options or thoughts on this one? TJ, going first?
No, I picked Christian as well.
Okay.
I think, and we talked about it before, right? A game where both teams rush the ball very well, right? Something's going to have to give. And in this situation, I'm going to trust Braylon Braxton a little bit more in terms of making a play, throwing the ball. And Christian Fitzpatrick is the type of player that can go up and get it. So if we're talking about making a play, I think this is going to be the guy that can make that happen if it comes down to those critical moments.
Yeah, and I would echo everything you guys have said. He would be a pick for me in this game as a potential game changer. I do think Marshall is going to have to throw the ball at times in this game, and they're going to need someone to go up and get it. And I think Fitzpatrick can provide that. So,
yeah, I think it's hard to get the shot out of my mind. I think it was in the Virginia Tech game where he goes up and makes that just absolutely incredible play earlier this season to catch that ball. I think it was a SportsCenter top 10 play too, if I'm not mistaken there. So I got a quick one here from Ben. He says Marshall wins by 3. But he seems to be a little bit, he seems to be a little bit of a Cajun hater, being an A-State fan. So that's not ultimately all that shocking. You guys don't have to go with an exact score. You can if you want to. But is there one team that you guys would pick if you had to for this game, or just a further feel of how you may see things happening on Saturday night?
yeah, I mean, as I've alluded to, I think this is going to be a close football game, throughout. I think the one thing that fans might enjoy about this game, there's a chance this might be a quick football game because of how many, rushes there might be, and the clock just continues to roll. But I think special teams is going to be massive in this game. I've talked about, how much I enjoy watching Almendaris as a kicker. I think this game is coming down to a kick in the fourth quarter. And because of Louisiana's prowess here, I'm taking the Cajuns, and, I've got them, winning a tight game at their home field and kind of the final send off to the renovation era of Cajun Field.
I like it.
Yeah. My head tells me to go with Noah. Right. It's one of those games. I mean, I've got stats here on paper. I mean, Marshall averages 31 points per game. Louisiana averages 35. So you're talking two teams that are very evenly matched, right? Coming down to literally a field goal or about that. So my head tells me obviously to go with the Cajuns. I'm going to pick Marshall. And I'm going to pick Marshall in a close one because that's what my heart says. And that's what I'd like to East to win it. And more importantly, I'd like Marshall to win it just because I'd like to see them have some success. And, the way they ended the season last year, they deserve to have sort of a turnaround this year. So my heart tells me Marshall. Again, if I'm picking with my football brain, right, it tells me Louisiana should and probably will pull this game out. But if Marshall won it, I would not be surprised at all.
TJ, you just want the chaos of Marshall winning a title and Charles Huff going down to Hattiesburg after winning a championship, don't you?
100%. I love it. I'm here for it.
Well, I will follow that sentiment, Noah, with what you've just said, because we've seen these types of things play out in the Sun Belt before, right? We've had rumors that App State's head coach in Drinkowitz was going to leave before the championship game was played. Now, they seem to have been okay and won that one. And we've seen the Cajuns have that same type of situation. And I think that they won that one too, right? I'm not crazy here. They won that one as well, with Napier leaving for Florida soon thereafter.
And then you had the Chadwell debacle.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I think this finally catches up. I think the rumor mill, the unfounded rumors that I've been sent even while we're alive here, that something is for sure happening. It may have just become too much. I hope that I'm wrong and that's less of a distraction than I think it is, but I feel like that's going to be a pretty big distraction. I know once the whistle goes, those guys don't care about any of that. The coaches won't let that affect their game plan. But what has it done to them throughout the week where they don't know what they should do or what they will do moving forward? I'm just going to lean on the Cajuns, playing at home in front of a home crowd. Hopefully it fills up more. I've seen some screenshots shown of the seats still available. So I know that there's a threat of weather, right? I mean, this game could have some rain. I think the forecast has improved here lately, which would really not benefit. I don't know. That's not leveling the playing field with both teams being strong running teams, right? Like
I was going to say it's not going to make much of a difference based on how these teams want to play each other.
Right. And we're not going to have a sloppy field because we know Cajun Field is field turf. So it's not a natural grass surface where it's going to be impossible to keep your feet or anything. But I'm not going to give an exact score prediction, but I actually might take the under if these defenses step up and do what they should do. So it could be lower scoring than some people might think. I think possibly with these championships, especially starting off slow, trying to establish the game that they want to do, which is
you're doing a lot of waffling, Dom. Pick one. You got to pick something.
Well, no, I'm going with the Cajuns. I've been down there a couple times. I've had great times. I love the boudin down there. Crawfish nachos I've had in the stadium. They do it right down there with the food. So I will favor the Cajuns again, somewhat because of the off-field distraction stuff. But like you guys said too,
heart pick or head pick?
Yeah, trying to wrap that up. The renovation era is
your pick based on what you're talking about? Is your pick a heart pick or a head pick?
More head pick, I'd say.
Okay.
Because like heart wise, I like both teams, right? Like I kind of like both teams coming into actually thought Marshall might lose to JMU and still end up in the championship game because I thought App State might beat Georgia Southern. And they like both teams, lose the game that they're supposed to, but then it still works out for Marshall to take the spot. But I was wrong completely. So we still got the matchup I predicted going in anyway. Yeah, I like this. This has been fun. We've got all three of our predictions. I will remove that from the screen because we had a lot of stuff. I don't know how many people are still hanging around, but of course, this is the rumor that we've all seen for a long time. I saw one earlier that came in. It seems to be unfounded that Huff is actually going to go to West Virginia. But I will put it out there since someone said it. Who knows if that's trying to be a gotcha moment for us on the podcast. But, I mean, hey, I saw it put out there. I'll just read what was said. So Mark wants to know how much of the news of Huff possibly going to Hattiesburg affects them in the title preps. I mean, TJ, you were never really a part of something like that during your playing days, right?
No, we had pretty much a stable coaching core during our tenure. I think it was a couple years after I graduated that guys started breaking up, but that was due to the success that we had during that 05, 06, 07 year run. So, but I will tell you this: you're going to play the game how you play the game, right? If you're a player, none of that stuff is going to get in. Despite what, and I know a lot of pundits, we all, and now I guess I'm a pundit, we all kind of talk about what can happen or what the player's mindset might be going into a game. If your coach might leave, we don't care as players about those kinds of things, right? We care about going out there for 60 minutes and dominating. You got to beat the man in front of you. And that's all that we care about the entire football game. None of the other distractions, the outside stuff, it feels like it should matter. But when that clock starts and the countdown is on, we do not care. We don't think about it. It's just not something at all that even crosses our mind while we're on the football field. And so when people talk about coaching changes and when people talk about things now, off-season, preseason, postseason, those kinds of things, when you're talking about affecting recruiting and that kind of thing, it matters then. But, a guy going into, his final game or championship game, and we're knowing he's going to leave, more times than not, we want to win that game for him.
Right.
So that's kind of the last thing we think about is my coach is leaving after the game. My thought is, I got this corner route I'm about to run against this safety who's playing inside leverage. I'm going to beat him to the sideline. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking about.
Well, I think the other piece of that too is I think, especially in this new era, and I know things have changed a little bit since you have played, but if a coach leaves, you're able to go in the transfer portal. And
exactly.
So in this situation, you're kind of just going out there. You want to win a title, but you want to get your bread a little bit as well. And
you're a free agent at that point.
Yeah. And I think that's the intriguing element of all of this is in the past, a coach leaves and there wasn't really this easy way to, leave a program. And so there's a lot more uncertainty. You don't have that as much now, especially if you're a star player. Maybe the people down the depth chart have a little bit more anxiety of if I go into the portal, am I going to have a spot to land? But I think it can play a factor in this game. I do think he is going to Southern Miss. I was a little bit questionable of it, a week ago as some of the reports started to swirl. But the longer this has gone and just how weird this situation has been, I think he's heading down there. I think it's going to be a good fit. I said on Twitter tonight, the optics of it are super strange. but you understand it. And I think it might be time for Charles Huff to move on. And I think he's going to, go make some good money down at Southern Miss. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. This is the BC saying, I think knowing Huff is heading out, it will galvanize the team to show out this Saturday. One last ride with coach for a title.
Just said the same thing. If more times than not, we want to win for the coach.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm a transfer portal guy. I know, listen, you're leaving, I'm leaving too. We might as well show out one more time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, Noah, that you brought up the transfer portal and that aspect of things. I heard a really good analogy for what this is kind of like. It was actually not referring to the transfer portal. It was a hockey show I was listening to, but they talked about how they equated the similar type of thing happening in that sport to what I was thinking in my head, like this is perfect for transfer portal too, is like they've got this highway going on and there's tons of people stuck in this traffic jam and everyone's taking the off ramps and they're really easy to get off because everybody wants to stay on. But where are the other spots that lead somewhere better, right? It's just going to jam up somewhere else. Like with this transfer portal, these guys have easy exits now, right? They can get off pretty quick, but then what's happening in that next step? Where do they go? How do they get there? How do they navigate it? And it's just interesting that there's 3 Sunbelt teams currently in this predicament with not knowing maybe who their coach is going to be and certainly who some of their players are going to be going into the future. We've seen that even just last year with, I think, was it ULM that had the biggest roster turnover in NCAA football? Did they have 60 plus guys?
62 guys.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, it worked out at the beginning. Obviously, they faltered towards the end there, but they were still competitive. It's not like they didn't become, they didn't stay in some of those games. But it can seem to work out, but it's not something you want to do often. So it's just an interesting aspect there. Noah, what's some other thoughts or feelings or things you've heard for, the App State head coaching job? And now, as we think, is going to open up the Marshall head coaching job?
Yeah, I mean, Neil Brown continues to come up at App State. I don't know kind of where I fall on that. I don't think he'd be a bad hire. I think it's just going to come down to money on some of those things. So, they could, potentially go a different route and go hotshot FCS coach, offensively minded. I think the App State job is a really interesting job. I mean, you could argue that it's one of the top G5 coaching jobs. And so I don't think that there is any shortage of potential candidates for that job. So it's going to be interesting. I know, Doug Gillen's going to do a good job at kind of walking through that process. I think that the most intriguing aspect of it is it will not surprise me if for the first time they go outside of the App State tree. I mean, you let Sean Clark go, and it's not going to surprise me to see them go outside of that tree, for this hire. But I think that's intriguing. Marshall, there's already been rumors out there that the defensive coordinator at, NC State could potentially be up for that job. He was also in the running for the Charlotte job. He's recently turned that down. So I think things could get interesting in the next week. And, as we have, seen the last couple of years in the league, surprises can happen. Who had Kane Womack leaving to be the defensive coordinator at Alabama, even a month or two into the offseason last year. So, you never know. I think fans have to understand that the Sun Belt is very much a transient league, and you're always going to see coaches move. You're going to see star players in this new world of college football. And you can choose to appreciate Sun Belt football for what it is, as each one of us have done. But you also have to be realistic that most of these athletic departments do not have the budgets to compete against, some of the Power 4 schools in terms of hiring coaches, keeping athletes. So it's a fascinating time, and I think we just need to enjoy the football, because the football's, really enjoyable to watch, and that's what keeps me tuning in, pretty regularly.
Yeah,
fair points.
TJ, any thoughts on who you'd like to see get hired at App real quick? Or I don't know if you guys used to play. I'm sure there's a group text that's going around about, who has heard and who hasn't heard. But anything to share insight on that?
Well,
yeah, I don't want to get
TJ, before you jump in, I got a duck, but okay. I appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun, and I'll have to listen back and see your thoughts, TJ, because I'm definitely interested in who you would.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate your time and your expertise coming to the show, man, and we'll certainly be throwing out an invite again in the future.
Yeah, we'll do. Hey, you guys have a good rest of your night.
Have a good one, man.
You too. Yeah, that was awesome, man. Him and Caden did such a great job with their podcast. I've been thinking about that for a long period of time. I tried it one time earlier this year, actually, when we were doing the simulcast.
Yeah,
I was like,
okay.
it'd be awesome to have those two guys on. We could, they could be on for 10 minutes and then dip, because that's kind of what this is. Like, we're watching the game together kind of thing. Didn't work out then. I'm glad we kind of got him for the championship game. Kind of worked out well in that regard. Unfortunately, Caden, obviously with his busy schedule, National Signing Day is going to take anybody's college football job, to the next level of getting stuff done and having to do things. But I want to go back to the question, TJ. So, what are you hearing in the former players realm? If anything real specific, obviously there's some things you probably don't want to share, but anything you are comfortable sharing that you've heard or seen said on in that platform.
Yeah, so obviously, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier. Obviously, guys like myself would like to see somebody like Steve Wilkes or, former player. We always want to see former players, right, come back and coach the team who have good reputation, good reputation with the team and rapport with the town. I was going to say city, but Boone is not a city; it's a town. But you always want to see guys like that come back and make impacts. There is a very specific name, and I'm not sure. And this is not me predicting the future or saying that he has had conversations with anybody or that anything is even in the works. But there's a very specific name that I would love to see come back to Appalachian State and be a head coach for us, and that's DJ Smith. Not sure how much you guys know about DJ Smith and his background, having played for us, been All-American at Appalachian State, also played football at Green Bay where he was a coach's assistant there. And then also has a couple years of football coaching experience at the collegiate level himself. DJ, he's now with Eli Drinkowitz down in Missouri, helping coach the defense there. So a couple things. This would obviously be a culture hire, right? It would be, again, this is not me forecasting or foreshadowing anything. I'm not saying that he's had conversations. I'm not saying that I've had conversations with him regarding where this should go. This is me doing what I do in my mind, right? Which is hope, right? This is all hope. But I think DJ Smith would be the right hire for a couple reasons. One, first of all, he's younger than I am. So he can relate to this new age type of football, right? College football. Two, he's got the experience. He's played there. He understands it. And not just there, he's played at Green Bay, and also he's coached on a very high level at Mizzou. Mizzou's done really well these past couple of years on Eli Drinkowitz, who I'm not a fan of how he left Appalachian State, but certainly a fan of the way he coaches football, what we did while he was there, and then also what he's doing now at Mizzou. So can coach very well. He's coaching under some very good leadership. So he would understand the talent that we have. He would understand how to coach football. And secondarily, I think he's smart enough to put people in positions that would help him in terms of offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and making sure that I think he can hire a staff around him. He is, to me, what Deion said. Now, on a smaller scale, please don't misplace what I'm saying. On a smaller scale, he is what Deion Sanders was or is to Colorado. Not so much I can coach every position and I know so much about X's and O's, and not that Deion doesn't, but Deion also understands how to put the right people around him, and he can go out and recruit and do the leadership part of it. I think DJ Smith, with less aura, obviously, would be able to kind of cultivate that into that App State territory. So would love to see it. And I think that would be, for me, a nice culture fit for Appalachian State moving forward.
Yeah. Simulated Sports Project says he'd love to see DJ as well. Had not heard his name mentioned until today, but he is a pretty decent pick. So I sent that in our group chat earlier this week at some point, before I even consulted back and forth with you at all. My reasoning is pretty much all the stuff you've said, but also a few other things. So position coach, co-defensive coordinator, recruiting coordinator. That is a thing that we are not talking about enough, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
Experience with recruiting in this day and age, right? We've talked about some guys like Steve Wilkes.
That goes to my point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're going to be able to recruit because of their professionalism for so many years, but that means nothing when they have experience with these kids who they probably don't connect to because of the age gap as much. Marv and I talked about it on the wrap-up show on Monday night, and it's kind of like a funny thing, but it's got to be true. And like, I know this dealing with people of different age groups that I work with. When he said it, it resonated with me. Marv said he probably knows the lyrics to all their favorite songs. That's such a simplistic thing, but you don't realize how much that could help him connect to the youth that he is trying to bring into this program. He can talk their language in a sense that a 60-something-year-old guy who's been around forever and just thinks that, showing the ring that he won, a natty many years ago or some type of thing like a Mac Brown, it's nice. Does it resonate with a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid? To me, I'm saying no, right? Like, that's fine. That's along what you said earlier, TJ. Your dad wants you to go play for that kind of guy. Who do you want to go play for as a young kid? Give me DJ Smith all damn day.
Well, but to that point though, DJ Smith is both.
True.
He's both. He has the NFL experience. He knows what it takes to get there, right? And look at the landscape right now. I mean, even in the NFL, you got Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan's son, right? That Shanahan tree is thick. You got Sean McVay, Mike McDaniels. All these guys are in their 30s.
Yes.
They're younger than me. I'll be 38 on Sunday. These guys are younger than I am, coaching NFL guys who make way more money than they do.
Right.
But they understand, they know all the lyrics to their songs, right? Deion Sanders, who now he's a bit of an anomaly because he's young at heart, but Deion Sanders is cut from that same cloth, right? He understands what it's like to be. He's got young kids, so it's a very he's so to speak up on game, if I can use that terminology. I don't know if kids are still using that these days, but he gets it, right. So it's one of those things where it's when I talk about culture hire, that is a culture hire for multiple reasons. He has the experience recruiting. He played the game at a very high level. He also played the game at App State. He knows what it's like. He knows all of the chants that we do. He knows what winning football looks like at Appalachian State. And also, he can speak these kids' language. He understands it. He's not far removed from having been in their shoes before. He knows what it's like to be recruited, to want to go, to be under-recruited. A kid out of Charlotte who, in my opinion, should not have been at Appalachian State. I say that same thing about Jock Roman. I say that same thing about Dexter Jackson, Amani Edwards. These are guys that Appalachian State should not have gotten, but they did get them. And they know what it's like to be under-recruited. They know what it's like to have to come in and prove a point and play with a chip on your shoulder. Guys like that are guys that are going to help your football team. Is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be a night and day kind of thing? Probably not. Is it going to take them a year or two with transfers and all that thing to kind of rebuild what we've lost, so to speak? No, but he is a kind of guy that once you start playing for him, because he's so hard-nosed, because he's done it, because he knows it, you're going to want to stay and play for him. And that transfer portal is going to cut real small and boom.
Yeah.
That's my spiel.
Yeah. Well, here's another little aspect. It's kind of along the same lines, but I haven't really said it out loud. He was on the last national championship team, so he's got that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my statement is going to actually be asking you a question. How much more instantaneously would you feel connected to the university and the team you used to play for than having somebody like that was involved in that, truly knows and understands what that was, what that means to come back and now not only be a part of the program, but run the damn program? Like,
bro, his number's in my phone. I can call him now if I want to.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's how connected I would feel.
I've heard Leonard say he didn't feel connected once he left, right? They didn't really reach out. There's no besides y'all's individual camaraderie, there's nothing from the university that keeps you connected, that keeps you wanting to come back up the mountain and watch games, unless they're good, obviously, which App State has been luckily. But to me, the instantaneous amount of pride and joy I would have if he was named head coach would be unmatched. There isn't another name out there that would get me as excited as DJ Smith. I'm just
100%.
telling
100%.
people that right now.
I deal with another sub 500 season, because it probably will be that, right? If we're just being realistic with him having to rebuild, I deal with that knowing that DJ Smith is next in line because it's coming. I know it's coming.
Yeah.
You know, and so I know also that if there's a couple kids in my area that I know that are really, really good, I can text DJ and say, hey, look, here's some game film, man. I don't know if you need a linebacker. I don't know if you need a receiver. I don't know if you need this, but here's some game film this guy gave me. Take it for what it's worth. And I know that it'll be looked at.
Yeah. In Simulated Sports Project saying again, I've been saying this coaching search will be crucial because this is App State's coaching response to and it's true. This is their real first tried and true one because Sean was kind of named head coach before this really all changed in the landscape. It was kind of evolving as he was taking that head coaching gig, but this is the first tried and true one during, everything that's been going on, and it'll continue to evolve. It's not going to stay the same. As we know, things are always fluid. But I also, and this is a much lesser point, but still something that I think is important. Would he not be the first black head coach at App State?
I think he would be.
There's another thing, right? I mean, Deion's bringing in kids
in a town like Boone. It matters.
Exactly. As simple as it is, he looks more like you. Like the understanding there is probably going to be a benefit, right? Like if I walk in, let's just be honest. They're going to be like, what's this guy going to tell me?
Right.
Right.
What are you going to do? Jim Harbaugh me? Spend the night at my house?
It's not to offend anybody, but that's just the plain and simple thing.
I mean, listen, it is what it is, right? Your skilled players and your guys like that, they want to be around people who look like them, who understand. Why do you think Mike Tomlin always has skilled players that are elite? Mike Tomlin can speak the language, right? And that's not saying that other coaches don't do it and aren't good at it, right? I mean, Jim Harbaugh just left Michigan and had a phenomenal season. You know what I mean? Won a national championship. I mean, again, don't get me wrong. Your nationality or your background shouldn't matter as much as it does, but representation matters. And it's not a whole lot of head coaches that look like us.
Right.
And so it matters to us where we want to go play football. That's all.
Yeah. Yep.
If you have options.
I mean, I've heard the statement before, sad but true, like, if you were of color and in the town of Boone, people would approach you and ask you if you played football, basketball, or ran track. That's 100%. Sad, right? Like
I went through that specifically.
Yes,
there was outside of basketball, football players, it was like 12 black people.
Right. Yeah. So that's something that would change for the better, like you said, across the board. Just a more inviting place in general. So. It's more than just football. It's bigger than just that in another realm in that regard as well. So hopefully, something happens behind the scenes that we get to be very happy about. But as we said, I mean, well, TJ might know more than he's letting on. I don't know that. He doesn't need to tell me more than that. But that was my pick too. So that's why I'm saying like I would love that pick. I saw someone else, Paul, say. He thinks we should hire Tyrone Nix. I'm not familiar with that name. I'll be honest. So I don't know if it's a joke or if it's a serious thing, but I have to look it up to really know the extent of that comment.
Right.
But I think that's if his name is captioned correctly, that's Captain America from YouTube. He's commented on a couple of our videos in the past when we've been streaming. So he may be using his real name this time. Simulated Sports Project said, in a town like Boone, having a coach like DJ Smith, like recruiting, is all about bringing kids from around the country. Smith is coached at multiple positions at App State and Missouri, and he will be bringing these kids in as well as being their rock, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, was he a vocal leader that you kind of aware of? I mean, he was obviously a younger guy, when you were there.
Wow, but he was vocal leader. I mean, he was kind of guy who laughed and joked a lot. He was very serious on the football field. He hit hard and he ran fast. But he has that ilk about him. He has that demonstrative personality. You're going to listen to him, deep voice, the whole bit. But he understands that he knows football, and more importantly, he knows defense, and that's what's going to win you championships.
Love it. I love it, man. I don't know if we could end any stronger than that. I mean, we're talking about App State the most because we are closest to that one, and there's a lot of speculation across the board on a number of other things. But yeah, any final thoughts? I like ending on something that we're both so passionate about on that part.
Yeah, no, I listen. It's been a great season. It's been super exciting. I know we're not done yet, but we're getting down to the last couple episodes, and so certainly excited about this weekend and ready to talk about it on our next show. And happy that you guys have been taking this journey with us, man. This is year 2 for me, so super awesome to be a part of. And really kind of, again, this isn't a farewell. This isn't we're done kind of thing.
Better not be, DJ, unless you're getting hired on staff or for somebody. Let me know.
No, more just a reflection kind of thing, man. I mean, it's been a good. Season's gone way quicker than we wanted it to, but no, it's been awesome, man. And so I'm super excited about where we're headed. But thank you guys for kind of coming along on this journey with us. I know tonight was a little bit shorter of a show, but super excited about it. And also Tyrone Nix, defensive coordinator at Ole Miss, is what.
Okay, so that was probably a very serious suggestion, which is at that level, that's probably a guy they may have actually considered. So who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
But yeah, I do want to thank everyone as well throughout this season. And again, we are far from done. We have bowl games to cover. We will have coaching episodes specific to that, I'm pretty sure. Maybe some shorter ones where we just talk very specific, maybe not even a live one. Who knows what we'll do. But TJ and I also want to do a couple different things throughout the off season to kind of stay around and stick around. Obviously, I'll be running the basketball show with Zach. I believe we're going to go live tomorrow night for anybody interested in that. We'll got the baseball show in the spring, but TJ has some contacts as far as some local recruits. Not all will be Sunbelt related, but again, this is to get an aspect and an understanding of how this new world is working for them and provide some interesting insight, whether they're at a Sunbelt school or otherwise. So we are going to try and highlight some of those guys coming up here in the future, especially during a little bit of a slower portion of the season. So stay tuned for some of that, and definitely be checking out Thick Thighs and Large Fries, because he's still doing some grilling outside, even though it's getting colder, folks. Don't let it fool you.
Still smoking some meats.
And we appreciate that, Warren. He says it's his first year following, but he is a Troy Trojan fan. So he says, go Trojans. We will end on that note. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks to Noah for stopping by and joining the show. That was awesome. And we will see you guys after the championship game this Saturday.